Once again, we are live on the magisterial live stream for modernists. And as you may be able to tell from this here home screen, we have a new season that has begun. Once I see we've got some people showing up, trickling in, logging on. Once I see that, I will start talking some more about that and showing off the new stuff. Well, there is one person at least. And there is another person. There are now persons, plural. So, as I was just saying, new season came out today. You can tell from this here home screen. And you can kind of see the theme, because of course we've got the two new characters. Angela here has already been released. And this down here is a very Chinese version of Daredevil, who is going to be released in the second half of the season, which should be cool. Daredevil is both a great character and the rare comic book character who has just had consistently great runs of stories through most of his existence. Of course, especially starting with Frank Miller. But so you can see they did a whole angel devil thing here. It is a Kunlun, Home of Iron Fist themed season. That's why the Chinese motifs in the background. So yeah, everybody is good. Trisha may be in the chat somewhere and can answer for herself and for her carnivorous plants. I mean, that's part of it with Daredevil. I think also just, especially since Frank Miller's run in the 80s, he's just been the sort of primary character to tell sort of real crime stories. He took Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, and made him his like arch nemesis. And so Daredevil stories, I mean, you could use Batman to do crime stories, but people are so entranced by Batman's rogues gallery of villains because it's so good, right? That like, you know, once you start writing Batman, you want to do a Two-Face story, you want to do a Joker story, you want to do, you know what I mean? And so, and some of those villains, well, pretty much all of those villains are a little over the top for a straightforward crime story. Whereas Wilson Fisk Kingpin is just like a big dude with no superpowers, you know. And Bullseye is he hires assassins like Bullseye, who's just a guy with really good aim. Right. So, you know, you could do more hard-boiled crime type stories. And so I think it attracts writers who are interested in doing that. And that means people can kind of take their pick. Or Marvel can take their pick of writers. You know what I mean? They could sort of choose like Bendis starting out on Daredevil, and stuff like. They can kind of take their pick of people, because anybody who wants to do crime stories kind of wants to do Daredevil. I think that's part of why he gets the good stories. I have not watched K-pop Demon Hunters. There's too much external pressure, and I'm just not into Asian animation or K-pop, so not super interested in it. But yeah, and I do know Abby's picture got posted in some of the groups. That is Abby. She is a she. I noted in the comments lots of people misgendering my dog. I don't know if you guys are all just weird trans activists or something, but she very clearly, the picture has a pink collar. Like, come on, guys. So, yeah, I'm trying to think what other questions are around. Angela, who's the character who's in the game now, the new character. Yeah, what Seeker just said in the chat is what I say when people ask me if I'm a Roman Catholic priest. That's probably the most off-color thing you'll ever hear me say in a Twitch stream. Or maybe not, who knows. So this is Angela, who they just added. And I will once again give them props for giving female characters in Marvel Rivals different body types. Because she has a very different body type than the other female characters. Oh, yeah, the arcade thing. Yeah, so we have a stand-up arcade, which is awesome. And it's got literally thousands of games on it. And most of them, when they come up, say things like not licensed for sale in North America. You know, things like that. But it's just a don't ask, don't tell thing. We got it from a place called Arcade Guys in Florida. They custom make each one. So you could go and look up their thing. Jesus was not a rabbi properly speaking. I mean, he taught, so he's a rabbi in the sense of just being a teacher. But he wasn't a rabbi in the sense of having had the laying on of hands and being ordained within any of the Pharisaic structures at the time. But some of the disciples and stuff were distant relatives of his, and they were also Galileans, so that, I mean, they probably kind of knew who he was. But yeah, Arcade Guys does great work. It's just, you know, don't ask, don't tell on the licensing on the games. So the other interesting thing about Angela, this new character, if you don't know the backstory, or at least it's interesting to me and maybe interesting to some of you, this character, who's just added to Marvel Rivals and is a Marvel character, started out as a Spawn character from Image Comics. She was an Angel character who was an antagonist to Spawn. And but here's the thing, Spawn, especially in the early days, was a creator-owned book, right? So Todd McFarlane obviously owned Spawn and the characters, but he believed in creator ownership. So he said, if you come in and do something on this book and you create a character, you own the character you created. So Neil Gaiman, he had a whole series of guest writers at the end of the first year of Spawn comics. So Alan Moore wrote an issue, Neil Gaiman wrote an issue, Dave Sim from Cerberus wrote an issue before he went crazy. Some sort of famous comic writers came in and wrote individual issues. And in Neil Gaiman's issue, he introduced this character, Angela, as sort of an antagonist for Spawn. Fast forward like 2 decades. There was a character who started out... Yes, Neil Gaiman, who is totally not canceled now. So there was a character published in Britain who originally in the 60s was called Marvel Man, who was a cheap ripoff of Captain Marvel / Shazam. He said Komoda instead of Shazam, but it was the same kind of thing. Kid who turns into a superhero, right? Total ripoff. But it was called Marvel Man. They later had to change the name to Miracle Man because of Marvel Comics. And Neil Gaiman had written some of the Miracle Man stories, and the comics were originally published in England. They were then reprinted in the United States by an American comic company. And so in the late aughts, early 2010s, both Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane decided they wanted to buy the rights to Miracle Man. Neil Gaiman bought the rights from the original creator in England, right? Todd McFarlane bought the rights from the shut-down American comic company that had been publishing him in the United States. So they both had part of the rights, right? And neither of them could actually publish anything with Miracle Man because of the other one's rights. And so Neil Gaiman wanted to just settle this with McFarlane, right? He's like, hey, you guys can publish it in Image or whatever, but I want to write it and do my own thing, and da-da-da-da-da. And Todd McFarlane decided to be kind of a jerk about it and be like, no, right? And take him to court. So he tried to take Neil Gaiman to court, make him spend all this money defending this suit to try to get the Miracle Man rights, right? Well, this ticked off Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman wasn't about to spend all this money on this court case. So Neil Gaiman sold his Miracle Man rights to Marvel Comics and sold Angela, this character here, to Marvel Comics just to tick off Todd McFarlane, like just out of spite, for no reason. And so Marvel immediately put Angela in like Guardians of the Galaxy and in Thor comics. And then it ended up happening, they then defended the lawsuit against McFarlane and won. So McFarlane lost the Miracle Man rights and Marvel got those too. So Todd McFarlane just got wrecked on the whole deal because he tried to be a jerk to Neil Gaiman. So that is the story of how you get Angela as a character in this game. They've got this is a skin that's for sale, $20.99 skin. So that's a new thing. There are a bunch of new skins. I've already unlocked a ton of the new skins from the Battle Pass for the new season. So there really isn't 400 years of silence in the Old Testament, right? If you go with... So what most Protestants and some other Western churches used the Pharisaic canon of the Hebrew Bible as their Old Testament, right? Well, if you're an Orthodox Jewish person, obviously there's no gap because you don't have a New Testament, right? Like your Bible just ends, right? But if you're a Christian of any type, and so you have the New Testament, and you take that canon of the Old Testament, that just creates this gap between where your Old Testament begins and your New Testament begins. But the rest of the Latin West that followed the North African canon doesn't have that gap, right? So that's like the current day Roman Catholic canon. The Greek traditional canon does not have that issue, does not have a gap. The Slavonic canon does not have a gap. Yeah. And yes, so the whole Hebraic versus Hellenic thing is a Protestant, especially Reformed meme. And it's serving its primary purpose is historical. Okay, so when I went to a Reformed seminary and I took the ancient church history class on early church history, literally one day in class, early on, the professor asks, by the beginning of the 2nd century in the letters of St. Ignatius of Antioch, you have the full-blown idea of the magisterial bishop. How did things go so wrong so fast? And even then I was like, there's another way of interpreting that data. Right? That you already have that by the beginning of this, by the early 100s. Right, but from the Reformed perspective, you have to say things went really wrong really fast. Right? You have to say that, like, by the time you get to the year 125 AD, everyone is using unbiblical church government. And everyone has an incorrect view of the Eucharist. And everyone has, weird beliefs about the Theotokos. And everyone has, right, all of this stuff right away when you get to the 2nd century. Right? And so you have to try and figure out, well, wait, how did all this unbiblical stuff, like, quote-unquote, quote-unquote, unbiblical stuff, quote-unquote, intrude into the church so fast? And the whole, this whole idea is how they try to spin that, right? So they say, well, look, the Old Testament and all the New Testament books were written by Jews. They're written by Jewish people, right? So they were thinking in Hebraic ways. Right? They were thinking in Jewish ways. But then, like, right off the bat, you get all these Greeks, right? And so by the time you get into the 2nd century, the temple's been destroyed, everything. Most Christians are now Greeks. And they think in Greek Hellenic ways, right? Philosophical ways. Not in, Hebraic ways. And so that's why you see all these changes. And all of these changes are, of course, bad for them, right? But they say it's just the Greek mind did this. The Greeks did this to us. So yeah, that's what that whole Hebraic versus Greek thought thing is about. Yeah. So this is the new Captain America skin. Yes. Yes, I didn't say they were consistent. So I find Zizek incredibly entertaining. I am technically right now an academic grandson of Slavoj Zizek. So, like, my supervisor in the graduate work I've been doing did his dissertation under Zizek. So, yeah. Yep, it is true. And so, yeah. I find him interesting and entertaining. He has that kind of role. He has kind of a court jester role. In the sense of, being the kind of crazy person who can say true things and sort of cause people to look at things in a different way. So, yeah, I am... his earlier... he's written like a gajillion books, but he's like the Stephen King of philosophy. But his earlier books are better than his later books. I will say that. In terms of Good Omens, the first season of Good Omens that's adapting the book is great. The book Good Omens is great. The first season that's adapting the book on Amazon is pretty good. Not as good as reading the book, but I mean, when is the adaptation ever as good as the book? But it's pretty good. Season 2 that they did is trash. Terry Pratchett had already died, so it was Good Omens was co-written by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett had died already, and so the second season was just written in screenplay format by Neil Gaiman, and it's garbage. That's not worth watching. But the first season, because it's just adapting the book, is like a unit unto itself. You can pretend the second season doesn't exist, like I do with True Detective. So right now, my favorite Mormon is Brandon Flowers, the lead singer of The Killers. Right now, you may not realize this, but right now as we speak, by watching this stream, you are earning this emote for Blade. So, enjoy, I guess. So I'm going to assume that Angles there is angels. And they're usually just referred to as the angel of the sun, the angel of the moon, the angel associated with a particular thing, or referred to as the thing. Like when the devil in Isaiah is connected to the morning star, i.e., what we now call Venus. Yeah. So there's a bunch of other stuff. I won't go through everything. I'll start a game. But everybody's working on getting this Ultron skin over the next 8 days. Everything after request in that last comment got cut off. So, I don't know what you're requesting. You'll have to reiterate. Yes, if you can get it bite-sized enough, I will see it. But I'm sure you can just, in general, ask folks in the chat to pray for you. I have no issues with that. I mean, I don't know why I would, but I don't. So, feel free. Oh, somebody asked my favorite Roman Catholic. I don't have a lot of thoughts on G.K. Chesterton. I haven't really read much of it. I'm not enough of an Anglophile. Like, I don't even really like C.S. Lewis that much. I'm only a low-grade fan of Tolkien. Don't tell Father Andrew. Yeah, I'm just... English literature isn't that much my thing. But, my favorite current-day Roman Catholic public figure is, this guy Ferris, who has a YouTube channel called How to Be Christian, which is insanely entertaining. It's mostly him arguing with and owning Protestants. So in terms of fantasy lit, like, honestly, I'm kind of like Gary Gygax in that my favorite stuff is, I'm more into like the pulp stuff. So like fantasy, I'm more into stuff like Robert E. Howard's Conan stuff and Clark Ashton Smith stuff, H.P. Lovecraft stuff, Edgar Rice Burroughs. I'm more into that kind of thing. More recent, some of some of Stephen King's stuff can be described. I generally like Stephen King. I have to say that because there's like, you know, he's written 20,000 books, and I probably like, you know, think about 16,000 of them are good. So that's not all of it, but I have read some of it. The Burroughs series, that Burroughs series. My favorite non-biblical poem. Yes, he would have to grow a beard. No Franco Pappas. My favorite non-biblical poem is it's kind of a okay, three-way tie.
Right here is
Three-way
gonna make
tie.
all the difference.
Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. The poem that Jonathan Swift wrote when the first Duke of Marlborough died, making fun of him. And Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Top 3 poems, in no particular order. Non-biblical poems.
I am Groot.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
Favorite Godzilla?
So, we have walked the park.
Assassins like us belong to a pretty exclusive club.
What monsters have you slain? Oni, yokai, demons.
The worst monsters of all. Hydra.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I will come back to that.
Stop them from securing the mission area.
Yeah, I actually kind of, despite myself, liked the Watchmen TV show. Okay. In terms of role-playing systems other than D&D, I've used a lot of role-playing systems other than D&D. My favorite non-D&D role-playing game system is actually the old TSR Marvel Superheroes game. The one that had everything on the one chart. Like, all the abilities, all the feats, all the everything, you rolled on this one chart. And it was amazing how they did it. And they had it set up so that you could play any character from the Hulk or Thor to Daredevil or Spider-Man. And everything was still on that chart. Like, Galactus was on that chart. Right? Like, favorite Godzilla film was probably the first American release one with Perry Mason in it. And that was a percentile die system. Recently, I was in a Kickstarter. I did the Kickstarter. Cryptozoic got the rights and are reprinting the entire old Mayfair Games DC Heroes role-playing game. I was a big fan. Steve Jackson's game had an RPG back in the day called Toon, Toon, where you played like Looney Tunes cartoon characters. That was amazing. They had a mechanic called your back pocket, and you could store anything in your back pocket. Like, you could have, like, you know, a tractor in your back pocket and just pull it out from behind your back, right? Because you're cartoon characters. That was kind of amazing. Gangbusters was cool. That was like Prohibition era gangsters role-playing. Fantasy Flight does a ton of good RPGs. They're a Swedish company, and the games are, well, I don't know now with tariffs, but before tariffs, the games were amazingly cheap because you paid for everything in kroners. And the exchange rate was good. But they have an Alien, like Aliens, the movies, like RPG that is awesome. They have a Blade Runner RPG that's pretty awesome. They have a couple of their own homegrown fantasy ones that are pretty cool in sort of Nordic settings. Yes, I own the complete Fantasy Flight Star Wars game. The Edge of the Empire, Force of Destiny, and what was the other one? Age of Rebellion. Call of Cthulhu is a great game. I was never a big Legend of Zelda fan. I was never a Nintendo guy. I was a Sega guy, and then I was a PlayStation guy from PlayStation 1 on. Mostly. So. So that ad thing is my cue to point out that I'm not asking anybody for money. But if you have Amazon Prime, you get a free subscription on Twitch every month. You can use that to not see the ads and give me a small amount of Jeff Bezos' money. I will take his money. I'm not asking for yours. Shadowrun, you have to own like 150 D6 like to be able to play it. It is an awesome setting, though. I don't think the game mechanics are great, but the setting is awesome. So someone asked about the creation through the logos, and yes, that is essentially what's going on there. All things are created through the logos, because to create something is by definition to put it in order, because chaos doesn't exist. Chaos is nothing, but has the potential to be anything, like Aristotle's prime matter. Yeah, Shadowrun, it's some great video games too. But yeah, the whole D6 mechanic I don't think is great. And I think the whole Decker thing, the whole Decker mechanic with the sort of like virtual reality thing, I think works way better in a video game format than a tabletop format.
Co-op time.
I think I said Fantasy Flight about the Alien game. Fantasy Flight did the Star Wars game I mentioned. But Free League is the Swedish company that does the Alien game and Blade Runner and stuff. Free League Publishing. Or Fria Ligan in Swedish. Free League, that Swedish company, also does the One Ring RPG, which is the sort of official Tolkien RPG, which, even if you're not that into Tolkien, so when Free League makes an RPG, all of the books, everything is super thematic. So the books look nothing alike. Like the Lord of the Rings books have these incredible like end papers and like edgings on the books that make them look like super Tolkien-esque. Whereas you get like the Blade Runner and like all the art and everything is totally like now retro 80s cyberpunk, but cyberpunk like that kind of art style. Yes, the Lord of Spirits conference is the beginning. It's just a few weeks now. So get your Be a Pharisee t-shirts from the pop-up store. I get no money from those, by the way, so I don't actually care if you get them or not, but if you want one, get them while they're hot. And I just think it's funny that I have a bunch of people with t-shirts with my name on it saying Be a Pharisee. It's bound to start fights with your Protestant friends and family. I have an Orthodox Jewish friend who bought like a whole pile of those Be a Pharisee t-shirts. So. Somebody asked something about the Antiochian House of Studies, but I didn't see what. Yes, that was Fred Jacob. Fred Jacobos. Yes, these t-shirts are available online. I don't have the ability to link it. It's linked in the Lord of Spirits Facebook group, I think. Father Andrew was linking it all over the place. It might even be linked under the under last night's episode on YouTube. I don't know. But yeah, they have a few t-shirts. And one of the prominent designs is me being quoted as saying, "Be a Pharisee."
Another epic victory.
But like I said, you can start fights with Protestant friends. Well, there you got to see Angela's MVP thing. I was on with him last night, actually. The video or the live stream on his channel has a political title, but I came on after they were done talking about politics. So the be a Pharisee quote comes from my closing thoughts on one of the we did 3 episodes of Lord of Spirits talking about the history of Israel, like Israel in the Bible, and in the one where we were talking about the Hasmonean period, we were talking about the Hasmoneans, like the kings who made themselves kings and high priests and stuff after the Maccabean revolt. Sort of the theme of my final thoughts on that episode were, in a world of Hasmoneans, be a Pharisee. And that got clipped as a YouTube short, and like Protestants went crazy in the comments, like, what? You know. So good times. And now there are t-shirts. So, and a bumper sticker. There is a Be a Pharisee, vandalize your car, or what? Of spending hours looking at such a character from the back, you can play different games or play different characters. I mean, everybody has to accept that there are some things that may not be a problem for people in general that might be a problem for you or for me individually. Right? There might be movies that other people can watch and it's fine, but I can't for one reason or another. Right? Or TV shows, or music, or, you know, for a variety of reasons. Right? So, yeah, and you just have to be willing to do that. And the 2 ways you can err on that is, you know, oh, well, this clearly isn't a problem for other people, therefore I should just not worry about it. Or you could flip around and go the other way and try and say, oh, well, because I have an issue with this, or it's a problem for me, no one should be allowed to do it or play it or see it or watch it or make it, or right? And both of those are errors, right? Because both of those are forms of pride. They're forms of pride because you're not willing to admit your own weaknesses. Being honest about your own weaknesses and failings, right, is part of humility. And so either pretending that you don't have them, or pretending that if you have them, everyone else must too. So it's not really a weakness on your part. Those are both signs of pride.
Armed and dangerous!
I mean, honestly, in terms of most entertainment stuff, my conscience has been seared as by a hot iron, so I barely even notice a lot of things, which that in itself is something I have to be careful about. because I've had awkward things where I watch something and I didn't even notice some of the language or some scene or something because of my misspent youth and general past. And then I'm watching it with someone else, you know, and it creates a really uncomfortable or awkward, you know, situation. When I suddenly, because the other person is there, realize, oh, ooh, you know. That's why you'll sometimes hear me pause before I recommend movies or TV shows, even here. And I speak fairly freely here and unfiltered here, but even here sometimes I'll kind of pause a little bit before I recommend certain things. Because I know there are people who probably shouldn't watch that thing, whatever it is. Oh, and like my mom is not the issue, and Trisha knows that, and she posts that. Like, I went and saw the South Park movie in the theater with my mom. Like, Magnolia, that movie that I only quasi-deniably recommended in an earlier stream, I went and saw in a movie theater with my mom. So, but other people, yes. Like my sisters, for example, right? Like, are a different situation. So the Stonehenge story is out there. It's actually on YouTube, me telling the Stonehenge story, but you have to find the link. So maybe someone who has it will post the link here in the chat. Fiasco is a great game. Fiasco is a great party RPG because it's simple, right, and easy to just sit down and play.
It's you and me again, old buddy.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
It is. So it's actually it's harder with like fictional characters like that, right? And here's why. Because there you go. Because if it's an actual human, right? If you're talking about your fellow human beings who you encounter in real life, part of the solution to that problem is to learn to not treat people as objects, sexually or otherwise. Right? So you get to know them, you get to understand that they're a person, that they're somebody's daughter, they're somebody's sister, they're somebody's wife, right? And that helps. But of course, a fictional character, right? A drawing, art, right? That kind of thing. Not only is it not an actual person, so there's no, like, person there to get to know, but in a lot of cases, they're deliberately drawn to try to, you know, stimulate the male gaze, right? Like, that's the whole purpose of the character's existence, right? And the whole plan around which, you know, the visual image is constructed, right? And so, you know, at that point, trying to avoid having the thoughts it was intended to trigger be triggered just comes down to you sort of being Spock and exercising, you know, stoic self-mastery, which, you know,
You are nothing!
it's essentially a lower grade version of, you know, is it possible to look at a piece of pornography and not, you know, be aroused by it? Well, you know, probably, technically, for some people with a ton of self-control, but pornography is sort of designed to do that, right? Like, that's why it's pornography.
Dangerous!
No plans on having Bart Urban on the stream. We have taken some shots and made some attempts at, believe it or not, so far completely unsuccessfully, but at trying to get Bart Urban to call into Lord of Spirits. Attempts have been made. They're just thus far unsuccessful. And no, I can't give you more detail on that, other than just to say, we've tried.
You're welcome. Hey, mind if I join you, pal?
Oh man, no, you never give up, right? Never give up, never surrender.
You are nothing!
I have not read any Jason Staples. By the way, if you saw that giant spear that got thrown in the ground and heard that woman's voice yell, "Heaven falls," and then we all got attached to that big spear in the ground, that's Angela's ultimate. So if you're wondering what her ultimate is, she throws that giant spear to the ground, which does damage, and then it tethers all the people in range to the spear. And so you get the damage of throwing it down, but then while people are tethered, somebody else on your team can then use an area of effect ultimate to, like, finish everybody off and they can't get away. Oh, Paul and the Resurrection of Israel. Yes, I have read that, and that is good. Yes, that is true. Paul, the Resurrection of Israel is very good. I don't agree with everything in it, but the basic trajectory he takes in there is, I think, correct.
2 points, Star-Lord.
Yes! You've captured more than half of the mission area. Keep going.
That fucking hurt.
Yes, I eventually got Lord on Emma Frost, but I had to wait till the Phoenix costume came out because it was the only one that wasn't embarrassing to play with her on. Even I have my limits in terms of embarrassing weirdness. Lamb of the Free, right? Although I appreciate the fact that there are now Protestants moving away from penal substitutionary atonement, I don't think Lamb of the Free's positive suggestions about atonement are correct. Would I say which costume is modest? The Phoenix costume for Emma Frost? I mean, relatively, for Emma Frost. Like, yeah. Like, here's what I'm talking about. This is the skin that came out that I used. Now, is it super modest? No, right? But, compared to that and that, like, it's comparatively modest. It's at least not, like, super embarrassing. I don't feel like a creep. Well, that depends. You know, Rogue is generally the epitome of modest, but clearly you have not seen Savage Land Rogue. Which was Jim Lee in the 90s doing good girl art, and has recently seen a renaissance. They made an action figure, and they did a miniseries of Savage Land Rogue. And that is not modest. Sorry, let me buy my unstable molecules. Yeah, so there are these unstable molecules currency that you get in the game now. And what you can buy with them in the store are color variants. So, for example, this is Psylocke's comic accurate costume, right? Like, this is what Psylocke wears in the comics. If you get this costume, you can then use unstable molecules to buy this recolor. So, unstable molecules get you different recolors of different costumes, essentially. Not all... I have not read it cover to cover, the book we talked about last night, but I have read chunks of it. And the chunks I read were very entertaining. No, that one doesn't have it. I was just looking for a second one to show. Oh, this Scarlet Witch one has recolors. I think Back to the Future falls into its own subgenre, along with Quantum Leap, of boomer nostalgia time travel. Yeah, so this is the Kunlun sort of Chinese themed Scarlet Witch skin. If you buy that, you can get unstable molecules to do this recolor or this recolor. Right, so that's what unstable molecules are for. Unstable molecules come from Fantastic Four comics. Reed Richards invented them. And unstable molecules are what the Fantastic Four's costumes are made out of. And that is how they explained. They said, oh, the costumes are made out of unstable molecules. That's why when the Human Torch flames on, like, all his clothes doesn't burn off. And why Reed Richards' uniform stretches when he stretches. Right? They're made of unstable molecules, quote unquote.
All the difference.
I am Groot.
Yeah, so we have to remember what, in terms of what the confession prayers do outside of confessing to a priest. You have to remember what confession and forgiveness is, right? Confession is being open and honest in order to sort of opening up the wound in order to receive healing. So
In 30 seconds. Stay strong.
the healing we receive through confession with the priest isn't magical in the sense that, like, oh, I went to confession, confessed it, and boom, now everything's fine. Right? You know that. You know, you've gone to confession more than once for the same thing. So have I. So has everybody. Right? It's healing that we receive over time. And so, in between when you're going to confession with the priest, you're still struggling with sin. You're still receiving healing. You're still repenting. And that's what those daily prayers are for. There was something that looked really interesting in the last comment that popped up on my screen, but it was gone before I could finish reading it in order to respond. So I'm going to need a repost of that one.
That is not that vehicle.
So in terms of examination of conscience, I actually honestly think that the Little Red prayer book that the Antiochian Archdiocese put together has just a really good section on that. Basically structured around going through the 10 Commandments and talking about different ways of violating the commandments. Give you questions to ask yourself. Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Right? And it helps with some of those things, right? Like, some things that you may not be thinking of as covetousness are actually covetousness, right? Or are similar in their dynamics to Covenant Assist, right? That kind of thing. And it gives you some concrete questions to ask yourself. Clement of Alexandria, yeah, so... I mean, I think the ambiguity about whether he's a saint in the Orthodox Church, and it is, frankly, a little bit dubious whether he's actually a saint in the Orthodox Church or not. And I say dubious not in the sense that nobody thinks he's a saint, but in that you can find some places and things saying that he is a saint, right, holding him as a saint, and then you can find other things that say he's not, right? So it's ambiguous in the sense that you can find Orthodox sources with some authority saying taking both positions on Clement of Alexandria, whether he's a saint or not. And I think that's reflective of the fact that, yes, while he was never condemned formally by an ecumenical council, the way Origen was, sorry, certain people, frankly, his writings have a lot of the same problems as Origen's writings. But he just never became the locus point of particular problematic beliefs the way Origen did. And so he didn't have to be condemned, right? And that's why I think you have this ambiguity, because if Origen had never been formally condemned, right, he would be in kind of the same spot as Clement of Alexandria. He'd be an early church writer, a lot of great things to say, very important in the history of Christian theology, but also some problematic things. Favorite Blizzard game has to be World of Warcraft, because that's where I met my wife. Oh yeah, I play all kinds of games. This is... Marvel Rivals is the one I stream, right? Part of the thing is, like, I thought about, like, man, one of my favorite recent games was Alan Wake 2. I love the Alan Wake series. Alan Wake 2 is amazing. But, like, I'm a priest. And so, can I stream Alan Wake 2 with the language and the things? Not really, right? Like, oh, if you loved the first Alan Wake, you need to play Alan Wake 2. If you loved Alan Wake 1, like, Alan Wake 2 will, like, set your world on fire. Or, like, I played a ton. I'm, like, 3 or 4 trophies away from platinum trophying Baldur's Gate 3, right? But can I, as a priest, stream Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough? I don't know that I can, right? So, yeah. I play lots of games, and have played lots of games, but this I can stream because it's not problematic. Yes, I played through all that. I platinum trophied the last several Assassin's Creed games. I love BioWare games, other than maybe the newest Dragon Age. I love the older Dragon Age, which I definitely could not stream as a priest. Love Mass Effect 1 through 3. I even liked Andromeda, but I think Andromeda was so buggy when it was released, it did get a fair shake. Yeah, there are some other things I could potentially stream. I've thought about, for example, doing a playthrough again of the Arkham games while I stream, but also streaming some of those games, unless I literally did like Knights of the Old Republic that I played like 57 times. It would be hard for me to like answer questions and interact with the chat while I was playing it and pay attention to it, you know. But if it was something I was replaying, like replaying the Arkham games or replaying, you know, Knights of the Old Republic for the umpteenth time, I could probably do it. I could probably do it and still interact with chat just because, you know, I've played through those games like every which way in the past.
Better stop that vehicle.
I spent more time with 1. I think in certain ways, Knights of the Old Republic 2 is a better game, but I spent more time with 1. Yeah, Trisha's huge Fallout fan. Yes, my wife is from the PC Master Race. Yeah, Cray is a really interesting character.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
Yes, Trisha, my wife, built her own gaming PC. And I do not play the Souls games, really, or I have not really played much of them. My wife, on the other hand, loves them. Trisha has Platinum Trophied Elden Ring. I think she had to play through it 3 times at escalating levels of difficulty to do that. She can tell you more about that in the chat. But yeah, she does the Soul games more than me. She is more of a pro gamer than me, yes. She does built her gaming PC. Does her I'm more of a console guy. Let me see. So I've had somebody else's Twitch stream going in the background this whole time so that I could get my drops. Because, get this, you don't get Twitch drops when you stream yourself. You have to watch someone else's. So you guys watching my stream get Twitch drops, but I don't get them while I'm streaming, which is totally weird. But I did indeed get a horrifically ugly blade skin as a Twitch drop. Are you ready to see how ugly this blade skin is? I mean, you guys are earning it right now watching this. In addition to that, so earlier I showed you the emote, right, that you're earning right now. This is the costume you're earning. The only thing positive I can say about this blade skin is that he kind of looks like Wesley Snipes in Demolition Man. And Demolition Man is awesome. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. In the future, every restaurant will be Taco Bell. So, yeah, there are a group of guys who happen to be Zoomers at my parish. And every once in a while they do a Zoomer movie night, and I recommend movies to them that they have not seen, being Zoomers, so that they can become more cultured. And Demolition Man was one of them. They Live was one of them. Certain classics that everyone needs to see at some point in their life. The Prince of Egypt was a good animated movie. Yes. I have only played one Monster Hunter game, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. It was on PlayStation
30 seconds
3.
before you attack. Get ready.
You know, they say fire and ice don't go together, but you and
No, I don't remember which one it was.
Actually hitting on me as the world ends around us.
And being old, I have presbyopia,
Reality, hotshot.
which is Greek for my eyes have beards. And so I can't see our little game rack to see a title.
reality is collapsing again? Yes, it must be Tuesday.
Get that vehicle to its destination.
What am I? Invisible?
Let me put it to you this way. I and everyone who I trusted, who was involved in season 1 of House of David, as limited as our involvement was, none of those people are involved in season 2. I will leave it there. Including me. I'm not involved in season 2. So, yeah. Confidence low.
You're halfway there. Keep going. Triple KO.
They're ahead of us.
Better watch your back.
Yes, he is not involved in season 2.
Anyone willing to help? I like the cold.
Almost there. Don't turn back now.
Yes. As far as I know, this is as far as I know.
Let's get
And obviously I'm not involved really anymore, but as far as I know, Marvel's way better than Star Wars.
Vehicle reached the checkpoint. Keep up the momentum.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, Star Wars had 3.5 good movies. Like,
I'm clocking some bad guys. Your power's
anime is not my thing. I do not have anything against it. It's just, it's sort of like English literature. It's just not a thing I'm into. I haven't watched much recent stuff, and by recent I mean since the 80s. I've seen all of sort of the classic anime. Like I've seen Akira, I've seen Appleseed, I've seen Ghost in the Shell, I've seen Barefoot Gen, I've seen Project A-ko, I've seen, all that stuff. And when I was a kid, I watched all of the sort of anime that got turned into kids' TV shows. Like Gatchaman that got turned into G-Force and Voltron and Robotech that was like Macross Saga. Like I watched all of that stuff. But it's just not my thing.
a nice deep freeze.
In terms of like Asian cultural stuff, I'm way more into live action stuff. Like Hong Kong action movies. Like I could get with you on that.
No worries.
That kind of stuff, wuxia stuff.
Be strong together.
I would have to say original trilogy and Rogue One Star Wars I prefer to anime. Just because, like I said, I'm really not that into anime. This is not my thing. Again, nothing against it. Just not much more. Manga, too. Like, I read all kinds of comics. And American comics and European comics. But, like, manga just, it doesn't do anything for me.
I'm clocking some bad guys.
Yeah, Akira Kurosawa, Yeah, no, like live action stuff. I mean, I'm not a fan of a ton of Western animation stuff either. It may just be I'm just not that big into animation. Like, you know, now that I think about it. Like, I was never a fan of the Disney movies.
By the eye of Agamotto.
Like, Prince of Egypt is a good movie, but I haven't watched it, like, since it came out. Like...
Up against the world.
I have not seen Weapons yet. As soon as it is on streaming, I will see it, but... Oh, the Preacher AMC series is horrible. It's horrible. But you have to understand, I'm a huge fan of the comic. Like, I was reading Preacher the comic as it was coming out in the 90s. Like... And... So, the thing is, so here's the thing with Garth Ennis. Early Garth Ennis was really good. And then late Garth Ennis got really horrible. Like, early Garth Ennis, like, Preacher, Hitman, that kind of stuff that he wrote, his Punisher stuff, especially Punisher Max. That stuff is great, because he does the outrageous shock value stuff and everything, right? That's in there. But that's just like a dark comedy layer over the top of a really good story, and really strongly written characters, and actual points that he's making that are meaningful, right? And then later, Garth Ennis, he turned into a parody of himself, and it was just all shock value all the time, you know? And when they made the Preacher TV series, you know, I knew there was going to be trouble as soon as I saw that Seth Rogen was an executive producer. Because the TV series was just the shock value, with none of the characters were even really recognizable as the characters from the comics. None of the depth, none of the themes. The main theme of the Preacher comic was about what does masculinity look like in the modern world. And Jesse Custer was this guy from Texas who had been brought up with this very traditional and very violent view of what it meant to be a man. And that had shaped his life in certain bad ways. And he was trying to find that out. But one of the whole tropes, and you get this from issue 1 in the Preacher comic book series, is that sort of like Elvis and True Romance, the movie, John Wayne, when Jesse Custer's by himself, like, John Wayne will sort of appear to him and he'll interact with John Wayne. And John Wayne is there representing sort of this archetypal old school image of American manhood. Right, as he's trying to work through. So anyway, all kinds of depth. Great comic, aimed at definitely mature readers. Right? But then the TV show was just like, hey, the shock value. Let's put Hitler in it. You know, like, come on, man. Come on, guy. So, yeah. TV series, do not recommend at all. Comic book series. Plausible deniability, recommend. I'll delete the VOD and claim I never did it. Yes, Cormac McCarthy is great. I love anything that's bleak and depressing. I don't know why. It's a sickness I have. But, I liked the first season of the Loki show better than the second season. On the whole. Yes. I had that other stream playing on mute on my cell phone, sitting off to the side, just to get the time in. So I'm going to need a repeat of that last question about Romans 2. I got the first half. Why was he talking about hypocrites? But I missed the last sentence. It's just a Jewish problem where pagan converts not putting things. Right. So the structure of St. Paul's argument at the beginning of Romans is after his introduction and the opening of the letter. In Romans 1, he's really talking about the Gentiles, right? And how they, by abandoning the worship of God, God had given them over, and talking about the sexual immorality and the idolatry and all of those things. He's talking about the past of the pagan converts, right? This is who you non-Jewish Christians were before Christ, right? In chapter 1. And so in chapter 2, he's really then turning to, because the other group of Christians in Romans, all of Romans, the purpose of the Epistle of the Romans is St. Paul is trying to reconcile and keep together Jewish and Gentile Christians in one church and not have them fragment into two different groups. Right? That's the whole purpose of the letter. So after he's done talking to them, to the Gentiles, he turns to the Jewish Christians and says, hey, right after the Edict of Claudius, he says, hey, before you guys start getting proud and stuck up about, oh yeah, we weren't like that. We weren't like those no good Gentile sinners, right? He says, yeah, you guys had the Torah, but how many of you actually followed it, right? How many of you who heard it kept it, right? So you don't really have anything to brag about either. That's the idea he's getting at in Romans 2. And that's why in Romans 2 he points out, he says, in fact, there are some Gentiles out there who did a better job of keeping the commandments than you. And they hadn't even received the commandments. But just the way they lived their life was they followed the commandments better than you did. Right? So he's trying to kind of argue, like, neither of you groups has the right to sort of brag or lord it over the other one. Because all of you before Christ were in a horrible mess. Right? All of you before you came to Christ, right? But now you've come to Christ. Then he goes on to argue, now that you've come to Christ, you've all had this new beginning, and you're all beginning on the same level playing field, right? No, I cannot earn drops for watching my own stream. I have tried things like that. The VOD doesn't work for me either. Yes, so... Okay, this is going to be the final game, and you know what that means. I will play the first character I see in the chat. Why do you always choose Spider-Man? Does this not get old? 2 people did it. Okay. That's too late. We had 2 Spider-Mans. So unless somebody insta-locks Spidey... I will play Spider-Man.
The right heroes could make all the difference.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Only my neighborhood is now like multiple realities. Cool, right?
So, as you can see, I have acquired the Mary Jane plushie for Spidey, which is attached to his belt. So, I may stink with this character, but at least I can accessorize.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong.
Oh, Spider-Man is the worst character, trust me. They have already planned this. Your fellows have already planned this out. This is the character who I am absolutely the worst with. I am better with Black Widow than I am with Spider-Man.
So, I'm guessing you don't want to trade them.
The battle starts in
Aha, I will lie in wait
4,
for the enemy.
3, 2,
My little ambush didn't work out so
I'm
swell.
not a vengeful person, but today I'll make an exception.
Yes, if the man of 1,000 heresies had been here, he would have insta-locked Spidey for me. Unfortunately, it is currently past the doggo's bedtime. They are cute when they're sleeping, though. So, I mean, you could still want to see the camera, I suppose. I do love how it sounds like Luna Snow yells, "I suck," right before she pops her power up. Yeah, there's a lot of misheard voice things. Like, it really sounds like when Iron Fist pops his ultimate, like he yells "Cheapo Town Hall." Oh yeah, take that.
Thanks so much.
I think she says "ice up," something like that. Ice up.
Back in the swing of things.
But it sounds like I suck. Somebody asked any recommendations for something, and then it vanished. So hit me with that again, and I may have such recommendations. That to me totally sounds like, when Jeff does his ultimate, it totally sounds like he's saying "Larry, Larry" to me.
Judge, jury.
Yo, and for reading during the Nativity Fast. There is a Nativity Fast devotional from Ancient Faith that I wrote. I wrote the last week of entries. So I wrote the entries for January 1st through Theophany, if I remember right. Something like that. And then the other sections are written by other people. But there is that. And that's another case where I'll recommend my own stuff purely because I get paid nothing for that. I don't get royalties for that book.
I'm not a vengeful person.
I'm old, so I grew up with Willie Ames before he went to rehab, rather than Bible Man.
Heavy weapons.
I am ready to put on a show. There's still a chance to stop them.
I got the turret.
Oh yeah, took out the turret. See, I'm helping.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man! Spider domain is not for the weak.
Double KO.
Back in the swing of things. Watch out, they're headed our way!
So I feel like this is an unfortunately typical Spider-Man performance. Every once in a while I'm hoping, you guys will pick him and suddenly, surprisingly, shockingly even to myself, I will do well with him. But that doesn't happen.
Much better.
Well, at some point the other members of my team who are losing will find out what's going on and they may come for all of you.
Another foot.
They'll be like, "You're the one who made him throw?" Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. Pulled off a pretty cool combo there. Won't happen again, don't worry, but I did it once at least, this game.
I gotta do better this time.
Take that, Luna Snow player.
They hit a checkpoint. Now might be a good time to stop them. Better stop them. Come on!
What a glorious instrument!
Gonna get sticky.
I am ready to put on a show.
Well, that was sad and pathetic.
Oh boy. Oh, did you see that?
I gotta do better this time.
Battlefield ready again. I totally rocked that.
Now I've got something to prove.
Yeah, there's never been a Jesus movie that I've liked. Or TV. I don't even like the show.
Spider Slam! Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Jury! Executioner!
So did you see Mary Jane when I got that triple? With a little heart over her head doing the aww.
Executioner!
Back in the swing of things.
That's one of the plushie reaction shots. Jeff can actually get a Deadpool plushie. So Deadpool not in the game to play yet, but Jeff can get a Deadpool plushie, and then you get Deadpool reacting to what Jeff is doing. So, the tradition that the Theotokos did not have labor pains when giving birth to Christ, what that's about is the fact that, remember, in Genesis 3, at the expulsion from paradise, labor pains are part of how Eve experienced the curse, right? And so the idea is that Christ's birth was not under the curse because,
Back in the swing.
right, he's Christ. Wasn't under the curse of sin from Genesis 3. And therefore, since it wasn't under the curse,
Frank's gone
she
full
did
turret mode.
experience the pain in childbirth, right, that results from that curse.
Back in the swing of things.
The final 10 seconds.
We might actually win this somehow, no thanks to me.
Judge! Jury! Executioner!
Got your back.
That's 3. Don't give them another inch. Or else.
I am Asgard's might!
Back in the swing of things.
Yeah, somebody reposted a question, and I saw the word repost, but I didn't see the repost. So they may have to re-repost. Sorry about that.
Oh, you went down pretty hard. Gonna get... Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
That's 3.
Put some pep in my step.
Dust.
Another epic.
Okay, I missed it again because I was doing that awesome triple. I actually feel like I did okay as Spider-Man for once. I'm very impressed with myself. Your plan to humble me has failed. But I need that. There it is. Okay. So there's some link between biblical Seth and Egyptian Seth. Something like Japheth and Zeus. My answer would be no, there is not. Because they're completely different words. So Seth in Hebrew means replacement. And it's actually Set in Egyptian. And the two languages aren't cognate. Yeah. Hey, I actually got 50 proficiency with Spider-Man out of that. How are my stats? I did not get double-digit kills. That's not surprising. But I did okay. Got a couple of triples in there. It's not totally embarrassing. I mean, vaguely embarrassing, but not totally embarrassing. You know. So, yeah, thank you, everybody. That'll be into this stream. There'll be another one coming at some point, soonish. No promises, but it'll happen. Turn on the notification thing. You'll find out.